Neglect is subtle. It doesn't arrive with a loud alarm or a flashing sign saying danger ahead. It creeps in quietly, disguised as comfort, laziness, or procrastination. One day, you skip a workout, telling yourself tomorrow will be different. Another day, you ignore a conversation with a loved one because you are too busy. You postpone learning a new skill thinking, I'll get to it eventually. Each small act of neglect seems harmless on its own. It feels invisible. It feels insignificant. But neglect compounds just like interest in a bank account, except in reverse. Instead of growing your life, it quietly eats away at it. Think about a neglected garden. 1 week without watering and the leaves begin to droop. 2 weeks and the soil cracks and weeds start creeping in. A month of neglect and the garden that once promised vibrant flowers and fresh vegetables begins to fade, wilt, and decay. Life works the same way. Every day that you ignore your health, relationships, career, or personal growth, decay sets in. You may not notice it immediately, but it is happening. The decline starts small, almost invisible, but it is persistent. It is relentless. Nature doesn't wait for your permission, and neither does life. The law of neglect is exacting. It doesn't discriminate between young and old, rich and poor, educated or uneducated. Everyone experiences its consequences eventually. Neglect also builds an invisible weight on your shoulders. It creates stress, regret, and missed opportunities that quietly accumulate. You may think you are saving energy by not doing something, but in reality, neglect costs more. One missed practice session leads to reduced strength and endurance. One postponed financial decision leads to missed investments or debt accumulation. One ignored relationship builds emotional distance that cannot be repaired overnight. Neglect is like a snowball rolling downhill. At first, it is small and manageable, but over time, it gains momentum, growing heavier, harder to stop, and more destructive than you ever imagined. The danger of neglect is that it often feels normal. You see it in habits you justify. I'll sleep late tonight, I'll start my diet tomorrow, I'll call them later. You are slowly teaching your mind, your body, and your environment that attention and care are optional. Every moment you choose inaction, you reinforce the habit of neglect. And habits are powerful. They determine the trajectory of your life far more than motivation or intention ever could. Neglect becomes the default pattern, the path of least resistance, and the silent architect of decline. The truth is simple. The results of neglect are unavoidable. You cannot escape them by wishing, hoping, or rationalizing. Neglect always demands payment, and the cost is measured in lost potential, missed opportunities, and diminished quality of life. Your future self will bear the consequences of today's inaction. What you fail to nurture today, you will regret tomorrow. The quiet acts of neglect today become the loud consequences of decline tomorrow, and the law is impartial. It does not forgive, it does not delay, and it does not negotiate. Nourishment is not a single act, and it is not a one-time effort. It is a daily commitment, a series of intentional choices, a lifestyle rather than an event. Too often, people wait for a sudden burst of inspiration, thinking that one grand gesture will fix everything. They imagine reading a single book, attending a seminar, or buying an expensive course will somehow transform their life. But real growth does not work that way. Growth, success, and fulfillment come from consistent, small, deliberate actions that feed the areas of your life that matter most. Nourishment is about building habits that continually provide energy, insight, and strength to your mind, your body, and your spirit. Consider the mind, for example. If you neglect it, it stagnates. The ideas become dull, creativity shrinks, and clarity fades. But if you nourish it every day through reading, learning, reflecting, and challenging your thinking, you are creating mental muscles that grow stronger and more capable over time. Every book you read, every conversation you engage in thoughtfully, every skill you practice becomes a seed planted in fertile soil. With patience and attention, these seeds grow into wisdom, insight, and the ability to solve problems with precision. Nourishing the mind is a conscious investment in your future self, and it is one that pays dividends far beyond what can be seen immediately. The body is no different. One skipped workout, One fast food meal or one night of poor sleep might feel inconsequential in the moment, but consistent nourishment of the body through movement, healthy eating, rest, and self-care creates energy, resilience, and vitality. Every step you take, every nutritious meal you consume, every hour of proper rest reinforces your ability to perform, endure, and thrive. Your physical state becomes a reflection of the attention you give it. Just as a car runs smoothly when maintained, your body functions optimally when cared for consistently. Neglect leads to breakdowns, illness, and fatigue, but nourishment leads to strength, endurance, and a capacity to achieve more than you once thought possible. Relationships, too, require nourishment. Love, trust, and respect do not appear by accident. They are cultivated through attention, communication, and consistent care. A single kind word, a listening ear, or a thoughtful action may seem small, but repeated over time, it builds bonds that are strong and enduring. Neglect, on the other hand, creates distance, misunderstanding, and erosion of connection. Nourishment of relationships is not flashy. It is subtle, patient, and often invisible. But it produces loyalty, love, and a network of support that sustains you when challenges inevitably arise. Nourishment is not about perfection. It is about participation. It is about making the conscious choice every day to care for yourself and your life in meaningful ways. It is about planting seeds and watering them consistently, trusting that growth will come. The more you invest in nourishment, the more life responds in kind. The mind becomes sharper, the body stronger, and relationships richer. And as you nourish one area of your life, it often inspires growth in others, creating momentum that lifts everything around you. Growth is never accidental. It is the direct result of the care, attention, and nourishment you choose to provide consistently. You cannot outsmart the law of life. This principle is impartial, unwavering, and inevitable. It does not care about excuses, intentions, or circumstances. It simply responds to action or inaction. Many people spend their lives believing that cleverness, luck, or persuasion can bypass the natural consequences of neglect or the benefits of nourishment. They hope that shortcuts, procrastination, or temporary effort will somehow deliver long-term results. But the truth is, the law is impartial and precise. What you sow, you will reap. It doesn't bend for excuses, and it doesn't delay for your convenience. It is a mirror reflecting your choices consistently and fairly. Consider someone who dreams of success but never invests in themselves. They believe that attending one seminar or reading one book will transform their career. They imagine that a single inspirational moment can replace daily effort. Meanwhile, the law of life continues its work silently. Their knowledge stagnates, their skills fail to grow, and opportunities pass them by. The law doesn't care about their intentions. It responds only to the reality of their actions. Every day they neglect growth. The distance between who they are and who they could be widens. Intelligence, talent, and dreams cannot outwit the fundamental principle. Consistent action determines results. The law is impartial and unforgiving, yet it is also predictable. This is where power lies. You cannot cheat it, but you can work with it. Nourish your mind, your body, your relationships, and your work consistently, and the law responds by producing growth, strength, and success. Ignore these areas and decline quietly but relentlessly sets in. It doesn't matter if your surroundings are favorable or if circumstances appear easy. The law applies equally to everyone, rich or poor, young or old, experienced or novice. Luck or opportunity may accelerate growth, but they cannot replace the need for consistent care and attention. The results of the law are inevitable because it does not negotiate. It executes with perfect accuracy. Trying to manipulate outcomes without nourishing your life is like trying to plant a tree and expecting fruit without water, sunlight, or care. You may convince yourself for a time that it will grow, but eventually reality will demand accountability. Your career, your health, your relationships, and your personal growth are all bound by this law. There is no bypass. You cannot rely on hope, optimism, or wishful thinking. You cannot avoid the consequences of neglect or expect rewards without investment. The law simply requires that you take responsibility for the areas of life that matter. Understanding that you cannot outsmart this law changes everything. It shifts the focus from blame and excuses to action and responsibility. It reminds you that your life's results are not determined by luck, chance, or external circumstances. They are determined by what you do consistently, moment by moment. This understanding empowers you because once you recognize the law's impartiality, you realize that growth, success, and transformation are entirely within your control. You cannot cheat the law, but you can honor it. And when you do, your life begins to respond in ways that are both reliable and extraordinary. Many people focus on appearances rather than substance. They polish the surface of their lives, the titles, the cars, the social media posts, while neglecting the foundation underneath. It is easy to impress others with what they can see: a tidy house, a sharp wardrobe, a confident demeanor. Yet real growth, real strength, and true success do not come from appearances. They come from what is unseen, from the roots that support the visible results of your life. If the roots are neglected, no amount of outward polish can sustain the tree. The moment challenges arise, the facade crumbles because it was built on weakness rather than nourishment. Nourishing the roots means investing in the core aspects of your life: your character, your discipline, your knowledge, and your integrity. These are the hidden forces that shape your results. A person may look successful, but if their habits are poor, their character compromised, and their skills undeveloped, their achievements are fragile and temporary. Real accomplishment is invisible at first. It is the quiet work done day after day, the decisions made when no one is watching, the self-control exercised when temptation is strong. These invisible investments grow slowly but steadily, creating strength that lasts a lifetime. Consider a tree. Its beauty and fruit depend entirely on the strength of its roots. Even the tallest, most magnificent tree will fall if its roots are shallow or damaged. Similarly, your outward life, your career, your relationships, your health depends on what you cultivate beneath the surface. Discipline, perseverance, and integrity are the roots of success. Continuous learning, reflection, and self-care feed those roots. When you nurture these core elements, the visible aspects of your life, achievements, recognition, happiness follow naturally. They are the natural byproduct of strong foundations, not the result of superficial effort. Focusing on appearances is also dangerous because it distracts you from what matters. It encourages comparison, envy, and pride. You may spend time trying to look like others are thriving while neglecting the growth that truly matters. Nourishing the roots requires humility, patience, and a long-term perspective. It asks you to measure progress by internal growth rather than external validation. Every habit you build, every skill you develop, and every ethical choice you make strengthens your roots. Over time, this hidden work produces results that are far more resilient and rewarding than any flashy appearance could ever provide. The law of nourishment versus neglect is clear. If you feed the roots, the fruit comes naturally. If you ignore the roots, the fruit suffers, no matter how much you try to polish it. True growth requires attention to the unseen, the internal, and the foundational. Success that is built solely on appearances is vulnerable to collapse, while success rooted in discipline, character, and integrity withstands challenges and thrives under pressure. When you focus on nourishing the roots of your life, everything else begins to flourish with authenticity, strength, and lasting impact. Neglect rarely hurts immediately. It whispers softly, promising later, while quietly building consequences that you cannot escape. The true impact of neglect is felt in the future, often when it is too late to reverse the damage easily. This is why so many people fail to see the urgency of taking care of themselves, their relationships, or their goals today. They think that missing one day of discipline, one opportunity to learn, or one chance to connect will not matter. But life has a way of collecting these small lapses and turning them into large, undeniable consequences. Neglect speaks loudest in your future because it does not require a dramatic announcement. It simply manifests over time, silently but powerfully. Consider health, for example. Ignoring small signs of stress, poor diet, or inactivity today may seem harmless, even convenient. Yet over months and years, these tiny moments of neglect accumulate. The body remembers. Energy levels decline, chronic conditions appear, and physical strength diminishes. When the consequences finally surface, they often appear suddenly, but they are the product of years of unnoticed neglect. The same principle applies to finances. A missed payment, postponed investment, or ignored budget may feel trivial now, but compound interest, fees, and lost opportunities quietly grow into serious financial burdens. Neglect is patient, but it is relentless, and it always demands repayment. Relationships, too, carry the weight of neglect into the future. A word not spoken, a call not returned, or a moment of presence ignored may seem inconsequential in the moment. Yet these small absences accumulate, creating emotional distance, misunderstandings, and a loss of trust. People do not always express disappointment immediately, but over time, the connection weakens and reconciliation becomes harder. The silence of neglect grows louder in its effects, sometimes leaving permanent gaps that could have been avoided with consistent attention and care. The consequences of neglect are not limited to what is lost. They also limit what could have been. Every neglected opportunity is a road not traveled. Every postponed habit is potential untapped, and every moment ignored is growth delayed. Neglect narrows the future quietly but inexorably. You do not feel the narrowing until you try to expand again. And by then, the work to catch up is greater than it would have been if attention had been given from the start. Neglect, therefore, is a thief that robs both the present and the future simultaneously, yet understanding the power of neglect in shaping the future provides an extraordinary advantage. When you recognize that what you ignore today will speak loudly tomorrow, you gain a sense of urgency and responsibility. You begin to see that every small act of care matters, every habit matters, and every decision matters. Nourishment becomes not a luxury, but a necessity, a deliberate choice to invest in the life you want to experience in the future. What you ignore today will echo tomorrow, but what you nourish today will also bear fruit in ways that are predictable, reliable, and profoundly rewarding. The future is shaped by today's actions, and the law is impartial. Neglect or nourish, the choice is yours, but the consequences are inevitable. Change does not require perfection, but it does require action. Many people wait for the perfect moment to start nourishing their lives. They wait until conditions are ideal, until they feel ready, or until the obstacles disappear. But the truth is that moment rarely comes. Life is full of distractions, responsibilities, and uncertainties. Waiting for the perfect conditions often becomes a lifelong excuse. What truly matters is not when you start, but that you start. Small acts of nourishment, repeated consistently, have the power to redirect your life in ways that nothing else can. Every positive action you take is like planting a seed in fertile soil. Reading a chapter of a book, choosing a healthy meal, reaching out to a friend, practicing a skill, or reflecting on your day may seem insignificant at first. Yet each of these actions compounds over time. One small step, repeated daily, transforms into habit. Habit shapes character. Character shapes destiny. The journey of growth is rarely dramatic in the beginning. It is subtle, incremental, and almost invisible at first. But it is precisely these small, consistent choices that determine the trajectory of your life. Nourishment begins in tiny steps, and the cumulative effect is extraordinary. The power of starting small also lies in momentum. Once you take action, even a tiny one, it generates energy, confidence, and belief. The first step, no matter how small, proves to yourself that change is possible. That proof sparks further action. One healthy meal leads to another. 1 hour of focused learning inspires more hours. One kind word encourages another. Momentum builds quietly but powerfully, and before long, the direction of your life begins to shift. Neglect loses its grip, and nourishment begins to define your reality. The law of cause and effect responds immediately to participation, even if the visible results take time to appear. Another crucial aspect of starting today is reclaiming control over your future. Life does not wait for anyone. Time continues to move, and every day that passes without action is an opportunity lost. When you begin nourishing yourself now, you reclaim influence over what tomorrow will look like. You no longer leave your life to chance, circumstance, or external events. You plant the seeds of growth that your future self will benefit from. Every small step is a declaration. You are taking responsibility, investing in your life, and refusing to let neglect dictate your outcomes. Finally, starting small emphasizes consistency over intensity. You do not need grand gestures or monumental effort to create lasting change. What matters is that you show up day after day with intention and care. The compound effect of these daily choices exceeds what even the most dramatic single efforts could achieve. Growth, strength, and success are built quietly, steadily, and reliably through participation. Every act of nourishment you choose today becomes the foundation for tomorrow's results. No matter how late it feels, the moment you start matters more than perfection, planning, or circumstance. Your life responds to what you do consistently, starting now, and the law is always watching, always responding, and always fair.